Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of SUGTalks. I'm Craig Dale, your host, and together with our special guests, we'll take a deep dive into the topics, challenges, and opportunities facing SAP users today. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss another episode. I'm delighted to be joined today by Kathryn Davidson, Director of SAP Solutions at TT Electronics. So, welcome, Kathryn.
Hi everyone.
And today's episode is the latest in our series of interviews with senior leaders to hear about their career highs and lows, tips for getting ahead, and also the challenges they've faced throughout their career. And just before we get into that, I just thought I'd ask a question around something that's quite apt when we're recording this, and that's the coronation of King Charles III. And apparently the official coronation signature dish was quiche. And I'd just like to ask you, Kathryn, if you had a choice, what would you choose as your official coronation dish? Now, why you think about that, initially what came to my mind was coronation chicken. Quite easy, I know. But I do like a coronation chicken sandwich. But I'm going to go proper northern now and say pork pie. But really boost that up a bit to maybe the middle class version, which has the pork pie with the apple sauce on top. I really do like that. So that would be mine. What would be your chosen dish, Kathryn?
I think you've given it an awful lot of thought. I really don't know. I think I would have gone with some type of spicy chicken salad.
Ooh, I like the sound of that. Well, like a chicken tikka
More like a
or chili,
harissa chicken or, sweet chili chicken, something like that.
sweet chili chicken salad. I like that. Yep. Now I'm hungry now. So I'm thinking about my next meal already. Thanks for that icebreaker question. Okay, thank you, Kathryn. Really do appreciate that. And okay, to get us started now, I suppose it would probably be good to start at the beginning as such. And how did you get into the world of IT, I suppose, and what led you to the field of SAP?
Started many, many moons ago, back in 2000. Really my first graduate role, and that was working at an employee shared service centre for a big blue chip company. They were centralising all of the work into Newcastle, and they used SAP HR and payroll. So that was my first experience with SAP as an end user. And it went on for many years for me, changing roles and working through the processes, but also moving up the ranks into both country, regional and global roles, all with SAP.
Oh, wow. And did that expand outside of the kind of the HR and payroll world as you were going through that transition?
Not until recently. So we did that for probably 18, maybe 15 years. I think I did SAP within the HR payroll world, and then moved into Workday.
Okay.
I did test lead for Workday for, I think, 3 years. Then I was made redundant, and then landed the job at TT, which was using SAP for manufacturing. So started that role in a project manager capacity, and then when my manager left, applied for his role and successfully got his role. So that's how I've landed kind of where I am today through SAP.
Oh, fantastic. So what attracted you to TT Electronics? I mean, obviously, you mentioned their redundancy, and then did you just come across this role by chance, or?
Completely by chance. So I had been made redundant. I was trying to think. I think I'd actually left my previous role by then. And in a past life, I used to work with a lady who used to do the recruitment for a deco in one of my previous roles.
Okay.
And she had landed the job as recruitment manager for TT Electronics and contacted me out of the blue. So it was complete fluke, really.
Oh, but that's fantastic, though, isn't it? I mean, and it certainly, what you know does matter, but also who you know and your network is crucial to these kind of things.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Ah, fantastic. And how big is your team at TT Electronics?
So including myself, there's 10 of us, and then some of our work is outsourced to third parties, so EDI support and basis. So in-house is predominantly a little bit of development and all of the functional team.
Okay. Oh, fantastic. And so just remind me, TT Electronics provide electronic technologies to organisations and specialised industries?
Correct, yeah. We do all kinds of electronic components for the defence, medical, IoT and automotive industry. So quite a wide range.
Okay. And, I suppose you'll be working overtime, are you, trying to boost the automotive industry? A lot of cars still seem to be delayed.
Yeah, well, we've got, there's still a bit of an issue from the COVID times. But really busy during COVID as well. It's been quite good for us, actually. We've not had that downturn that other industries or companies have faced.
Oh, fantastic. And does your industry and business that you're in bring with it any particular challenges or requirements for your use of SAP?
Although we're a global company, we are quite a small company. We've got about 800 SAP users globally. And we try to keep things as simple as we can. And as a result, it hasn't posed too many challenges. We don't keep any of the ITAR data in SAP. I think the most important for us is the traceability of products, especially for defence and the defence and the medical industry. We've got to keep that traceability in case of issues or queries down the line.
Oh, wow, I can imagine that is a very key challenge that you've got to keep on top. And does SAP support that really well?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I think what we're finding, or certainly my biggest learning coming into this, and it's also going to play a huge role in S4 when we get there, is it's not just what SAP is capable of. You could have the best system in the world, but if your users don't understand how to use the system, or they maybe take it upon themselves to tweak the process a little bit and get into a bit of a pickle, then, it's not just the IT side of things. You've got to have the business side of things as well to make sure that everything works in harmony. Otherwise, it will just break down.
Yeah, I can understand that exactly. You have your business processes set, and then all of a sudden, Bob round the corner decides he's just going to go down a completely separate route, and that's nothing bad to anybody called Bob, by the way. Just a name that came to my mind. So just back to that S4 you mentioned there, when you get there, and so what are your future plans for SAP?
So we are exploring S4. I'm really excited about it because we have customized our existing system so much that for me it's causing challenges both in maintaining the system but also for our users using the system. We've got 7 sites on SAP and they all use SAP slightly differently. So for S4, for me, it's the best opportunity we have to go back to basics, go back to SAP best practice as much as possible, and really just make sure all of our end users understand the system, take the opportunity to get good updated training materials in place, make sure they've all had an input on the processes, make sure they're lined across all sites, and really just try and go to simplification.
So would you be looking to bring those 7 into one instance working together?
They're all in one instance today, but they've all got different setups. So it will just be making sure that we have support from the business, buy-in from the business in terms of global process owners and super users to really be the advocates for what we're doing, and making sure that all of the sites buy into one single process as much as possible. Yes, there'll be legal deviations, but hopefully they should be the exception to the rule rather than the rule.
Okay. So have you started that journey, or are you just kind of blueprinting or whatever at the moment?
We have literally just sent out the invites today for the discovery phase. So we've partnered with NTT for the discovery phase. So over the next 4 weeks, so by the middle of June, we will have completed discovery phase and do the playback to the executives to really see, which way we're going. Are we doing RISE? Are we not? What's the SAP solution really going to be built up on before we go into design?
Oh, wonderful. You're looking at which flavour to choose as you go to the future.
Yeah.
I suppose that's a very important decision and initial step, that what best fits you and your business.
Exactly, and I think that's going to be key. I mean, for me, I think we're going to need a lot of help from change management and OCM to really manage the amount of change that we are going to go through and really make sure the business not only buy into it, but they understand what they're signing up for, and then making sure we've got the tools and training materials in place to support the end users, because in some cases, I think it's going to look very different from what we have today.
Oh, wow. And how long do you kind of see the project overall take? And I can imagine it's going to take quite some time.
It will. We're hoping to get the design done by the end of this year. And then providing we get all of the sign off, etc., then we'll go ahead with implementation for the pilot site next year. So we're going to do a 12-month project to do as much of the build as possible for all of the sites. And then after that, we're planning, very optimistically, to do a release every 6 months. So it's going to take us probably 3-4 years to get all of our existing sites into S4. And we're also adding in some additional sites as well. So it's going to be busy.
Oh, fantastic. It certainly sounds like it's going to be, and look forward to hearing about it as you go through that journey.
Be the grey hairs.
And just reflecting back on that, obviously you mentioned a lot about change management and about obviously getting the users on board and the users using the right processes and the right training. Where do you go for help when you require support on SAP related matters?
So I think from my team's perspective, they've all got a good network of past colleagues or people in the industry that they can rely on. From my personal perspective, I found the user group very helpful, because through the user group, I've actually built networks of people in my peer group who are going through the S4 journey. So some of them have been there, got the war wounds, and they can share, what to do, what not to do. Some of them are going through the same stages as myself. And so for me, that the user group's been invaluable to grow that network and get a good grounding for the S4 journey. For the end users, to be honest, I think they struggle today. They rely on materials that the SAP team have developed, which there is a lot there, but we've struggled to maintain it with the amount of change going through the system. So for me, when we go to S4, it's going to be so important to look at something like Enable now, where we have that training material built into the system that they can refer to. Today, my biggest fear is if we give them access to the user group, where I know there's a lot of information out there, we've got such a customized system that I think they will end up down a bit of a rabbit hole and looking at something that we don't have.
So looking at timing, and really pleasing to hear that you're getting value from the user group. And to our listeners, no money has changed hands. I've not offered Kathryn any bribe or anything to say that. It's just a nice surprise to hear it. Thank you. But on that note, 'cause I know we were talking several weeks ago now around the academy that we're developing. And hopefully as we do go into the future, we're able to help your team in that S4 knowledge and training as we develop that academy. And hope the aim is that we are there and have the training available for our members to help them on the journey. As one of the things we've been doing is working with a number of customers who've been on the journey, looking at their if you like, the stages of the journey to S4 and what skills and training they needed on that journey. So hopefully, coming up in the coming months, and good timing for you and your organisation, I hope that it's there for you when you're ready to participate in that. So, fingers crossed, and we will keep in touch to make sure that we're developing it in the way that you and other SAP customers need. So just on that, while we're on the user group as such, how important do you see the role of the user group in our community in helping support you on your journey?
I think for me, it's crucial. I mean, I think I would have struggled to some degree without the user group and being able to grow the networks. I've been to a lot of the sessions that you've run on S4, and they've all provided a lot of invaluable information, things that I've never even thought of, things to go away and think about, frustrations from other people who have gone through the journey where maybe things with Rise haven't been as clear as what you would have thought. So for me, it's been incredibly useful, and I think ongoing it will prove to be. It's just nice to talk to people who are not trying to sell you something, who are there to help and just share advice. That the people I have talked to have all been incredibly helpful and are willing to sit down and share experience with you, which is great. And I just need to find the right opportunity to get my team more involved and get them to get the value out of it.
Oh, fantastic. And while we look at, you mentioned the discovery phase that you're going to work with an NTT, and so how would you kind of rate the level of support that you have provided by, I suppose, software vendors, including SAP, and also the partners in that area?
So initially we were working with SAP, and to be honest, it was just info overload. There was so much available, but then when you started looking at it, getting a 200 slide PowerPoint, it's like, where on earth do I start with this? So for us, taking a step back, we did talk to several partners. Mm-hmm. All of them have been incredibly helpful, just trying to point you in the right direction. They will give you information to go away and think about. They will share experience with you. But certainly from what I've done so far with NTT, it's been invaluable just to put a framework and try and break it down into logical steps, so that at the end of discovery, we're going to have some reassurance of what the BOM will be, which will drive the cost case, but also what's the next steps? What does the design phase possibly look like in terms of what do we need to cover? What's the thoughts on what S4 is actually going to look like for us? What's the resource plan to go with that, so that we can really then start driving that business case within the business internally to get the sign-off.
Well, that's fantastic. So what it sounds to me, I suppose, is areas for improvement there is know your customer, if you like, and focus on your customer rather than shotgun approach, if you like. Mentioned the 200 slide deck, which I've seen from time to time, I have to say.
Yeah, that was the process discovery, and I'm sure it's all really good information, but like when you just looked at it, when you've got your day job on top of it, it's just like, where do you start with this? I think talking to NTT and other partners, understand your options that are available to you and don't feel railroaded into Rise. There are other options available. I think Rise is good and is right for some people, but not necessarily everybody. I think for us personally, Rise does actually offer a lot of benefits. It does tick a lot of boxes, but we do have a lot of questions about it that we're going to explore during the discovery phase.
And I think that's crucial, isn't it? There are lots of pathways to S4, and the most crucial part is working with your partners in SAP to find the right one for your business. And we've had these conversations before, and it's not kind of Rise as the answer, what's the question? It's what is best for you and your business on the route forward. And like you said, that might be Rise. You never know, but going through that discovery phase will hopefully find the path that's right for you and your organisation.
Yeah, completely.
So when we look at kind of going back to you now, if we may, Kathryn, how was your experience in, and I suppose other roles that you've had in your career when working on SAP? How they impacted on working with SAP, and the key learnings that you've applied. You mentioned that obviously you came out graduation and landed straight into an organisation that was utilising SAP HR and payroll. So I suppose from where you are now and where you started, how has that journey impacted your career when working with SAP?
I think maybe SAP isn't just one flavour. You've got it, there's so many different variations of SAP. It's used across many different industries. It's used in different ways in different companies. So I don't think you ever fully understand SAP. You can move role to role and how you use SAP will be completely different. So I think what I've taken away is always be willing to learn, never be fazed by it. It can seem a bit daunting at times. I've moved from HR payroll into the manufacturing industry. Do I know SAP manufacturing inside out, back to front? No, I don't. But then again, I'm not doing the configuration every day, so I don't need to know it inside out and back to front. I need to know how the process hangs together, and if I've got detailed questions, I've got my team underneath me to answer them. So I think it's really just taken away. Your team you need your team. You can't be successful without your team. And for me, planning is absolutely key with SAP. You cannot take shortcuts when doing SAP projects. If you want to accelerate a project, that's fine, but you've got to plan it. Don't skip steps because it will just bite you if you get the data wrong, you get the change management wrong, the business aren't bought into it. There's so much that can go wrong with it. But when you think about an SAP project, people think, oh, it's easy. 6 months and you're there. But it's not. It's when you start digging into it and putting all the meat on the bones. It is complex. It does take time. It takes a lot of people, and don't cut corners.
Yeah, that's very interesting, that, because you see so many. What you see when you read the press, any failing projects, it's always SAP is bad with this, or Oracle project fails, and this, that, and the other, and it's normally 90% the people involved and the process rather than the actual solution itself.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, and is there anything else that you would suggest people avoid doing rather than taking the time? Don't cut corners. Make sure you do.
I think also make sure you've got the business bought in, and it goes back to a point I was saying earlier about the end users being able to use the system, understand the processes and the training. So when you're doing an SAP implementation or an SAP project, make sure the business are bought into it. If there is change going in, make sure they understand the change, they're bought into it, and they understand the impact. Could have resource impact, could have infrastructure impact. They need to, fully understand that. And also make sure that the business understand that this isn't an IT project. Mm-hmm. These are business transformation projects, and they need to be bought in to make sure they've got the resource to support the project, support the processes once they go live, but also make sure that they document all of the business processes and own the training moving forward.
Fantastic, thank you. And one of the things that we've been looking at is diversity, and in how we can ensure our community is as diverse and possible as it possibly can be, from not just from kind of a male-female perspective, but also in industry, that we've got many people from different industries learning together, etc. But one of the key things that we did create, a couple of years ago now, is our Women in SAP community to look to attract more if you like, women into the SAP space and into our community. From your perspective, what else could be done to attract more women into working with SAP?
I did think about this question and I really struggled because I think a lot of people use SAP because that's the technology of choice when they join a company. Mm-hmm. I think if you went to a high school and said, well, how many of you want to do a career in SAP? You'll just get the question, what's SAP? So I think for me, a lot of it needs to be advocated at a lower level, whether I don't think you can necessarily put it into schools, but I think there needs to be more support within the businesses for end users if they are interested in SAP to go and further the development, whether it's courses that are sponsored by the company, have more SAP courses that are available in local schools or colleges rather than just through SAP. You know, if you go to the SAP courses, they're quite expensive. And I think for a lot of people, it might just rule out the possibility of doing some self-development because of the cost.
Okay, excellent. Well, it's quite interesting you say that because, you know, working with universities is something we're looking to do a lot more of, and we're just developing what we call our futures membership, which is hopefully going to bring in a lot more students. And you know how we're looking at it is the next generation of, you know, our members, but also SAP users. So that's certainly an area we're looking at, and perhaps, you know, taking on board what you said there, it might be even worth going back further than that and just bringing some SAP knowledge into the school and the college era as well, and so that people know what is SAP. Because, like, I completely agree with you. You know, until you go into business, you probably have never heard of SAP, and that's something that I think we've all got to look to bring back and give back, and bring on those next generations into the world of SAP. Oh, thank you for that. And I suppose as we come towards the end of our discussion, let's look to the future, I suppose. And, you know, if you looked into your crystal ball, you know, what do you think might be the biggest change we'll see in the world of electronics, perhaps, and IT in the next 5 years?
So I was talking about this morning, actually, and my guess will be that the role of the IT teams will change, especially with S4. I know it depends on what flavour of S4 you go with. There's so many add-ons and so many options, whether you go with the bells and whistles or not, as the case may be. But I think that with the automation within S4 and artificial intelligence that's built in with the machine learning, I think IT will become more of a business analyst, working more closely with the business. I actually do that a lot with the team today anyway, purely because I feel a lot of our businesses have lost the knowledge and they rely on the IT team to tell them what their processes are. But I think we'll see a lot more of IT partnering with the business in a business role rather than just being an IT role, especially when you look at the likes of SAP Rise. They're taking on some of the IT work that is typically done within the IT teams today, therefore freeing up IT teams to do the value add within the business.
Okay, yeah, fantastic. And, you know, we see so much of that, and, you know, we've heard so much about the likes of ChatGPT, etc., and all the world of artificial intelligence is coming more and more to the fore in everyone's life now.
Yeah.
You know, and it's going to be there. And automation, you know, you mentioned, and I suppose the importance of, you know, perhaps automating a lot of what might be seen as standard or menial kind of business processes or tasks, which frees up people to be more creative, perhaps, in the business.
Exactly. Yeah.
All very important to the future. Okay, well,
Definitely.
Kathryn, is there anything else perhaps that we haven't covered or that you'd like to add before we close?
I think maybe just a last word in terms of women moving into SAP. I know we've touched on a lot of people don't know about SAP until they land in a role, but I think it's important to point out that it's not just technical roles within the world of SAP. There's a lot
Yeah.
of business roles as well. And I don't know how many people see that. They maybe just see, oh, SAP's IT, I'm not interested in IT, I'm not going into that, which is not the case. I'm not a config person. Yes, I've got an understanding how SAP sits together, work closely with the basis team, with my team, but a lot of my skill set have come from managing various roles within kind of one foot in HR and one foot in IT, but it's all the problem solving roles, it's the business management, the people management, the planning. All of that is essential for a successful role in SAP. It's not just about having the config skills to be able to go and configure SD or MM. It's much more than that.
Oh, that's excellent, and thank you for bringing that up because it is the world, I think, of IT and business, and you mentioned it as well, for the future is becoming more and more blurred as really IT becomes part of the business,
Yeah.
because it's essential that it's hand in hand and works together on that. So thank you for that. Yeah, SAP, you mentioned, if we go back to talking about the project, it's not an IT project, it's a business project. It's all about business improvement. And, back to the people, it's not just IT people, it's business people. The amount of people I've spoken to when doing this podcast, and they're in kind of IT leadership roles, but they actually stem from the business and have no huge background in IT. It's phenomenal, and
Yeah.
I think you're spot on there. So thank you very much for that, Kathryn, and thank you for your time. Thank you for your insights. And, to our listeners, thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and found it valuable. And as I said before, please do make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of our future senior business and IT leader interviews. And until the next time, stay safe, stay well, and keep washing your hands.